Welcome to the question of the day. Today's question is from Blaine in the Boston area. Blaine asks, how do I connect with customers when I can't find anything to connect with? I look for art on the walls and pictures, but sometimes I just can't find anything. I'm also not a big sports fan, so I usually strike out there. Ha ha. He actually wrote ha ha. um, Great question. First off, I didn't know there were any non-sports fans in the Boston area. I just thought it was like in your DNA. So I learned something today. This is a great question. It's a great question for sales. And I also think this is timely for Thanksgiving as well. We got Thanksgiving dinner coming up. We're getting together with family. And I don't know if your family's like my family, but sometimes, man, there's just some family you just don't connect with, right? Like you got nothing in common. And so sometimes it's a labor of love to find that thing that you can connect on or have a conversation about. And so this may actually help with Thanksgiving dinner as well. So when we talk about connecting with people, I think of one of my great friends, Jerome. Jerome always says, stay curious. And when I think of stay curious, I think of a great example early on in my sales career. So, my first sales job was I sold used Subarus. And before that, I had been a teacher. So, I wasn't like a born salesman. I didn't even know what I was doing, right? But I sold used Subarus. Now, in addition to used Subarus, there was other used cars on the lot sometimes. And usually I didn't know a whole lot about them. Now we had this one used Porsche on the lot, and I really didn't know anything about that because it's not often that we had a Porsche on the lot. This was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Not a lot of Porsches driving around, right? It's a cold climate, so it's not a car that's driven year round. And so we had this used Porsche, and there was a customer that was coming in to look at it, and I was the salesperson that was going to help this customer. And my sales manager, he pulled me aside, and I'm so glad he did because he gave me some really good advice. He said, don't pretend like you know what you're talking about out there. You don't know anything about that Porsche out there. Don't pretend like you do. This guy's going to see right through that. This is a Porsche enthusiast that's showing up to look at this vehicle. He knows about this car and he's going to tell very quickly that you don't know anything about this car. So instead, ask him questions. You don't have to be the expert. Like if you were coming in to look at a Subaru, I knew everything about a Subaru. I could tell you about the symmetrical all-wheel drive. I could tell you the history of the Subaru Badging. I tell you everything about it. But with this Porsche, he said, you don't know anything. Ask him questions. Stay curious. So I did. As the guy showed up, he started walking around the vehicle, and I walked out there to meet him. And I even told him something like, "Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this car, but you must. I mean, you're here to look at it. You must be an enthusiast." And so I worked really hard to ask him some open-ended questions. Things like, what draws you to this car? What attracted you to this one online? What do you drive now? What do you like about that? What are you looking for in your next vehicle? Like, just started asking him all these questions. And he started answering those questions and started talking to me. And as we got into the questions about Porsche, he started opening up. He loved to talk about Porsche. He was an enthusiast. So this was a passion of his. This is something he reads about and spends time online and looking at cars and he's looking to spend money on a very particular one. And so he loves talking about Porsche. And as he began telling me about Porsche and opening up, he began teaching me because this was his passion. And I learned many things about Porsche from this customer. So the first thing I learned was the proper pronunciation is Porsche. He said that if you call it a Porsche, that is a very quick way that he can tell if you're an enthusiast or not. Because he said the real enthusiasts say Porsche. And I thought that just blew my mind right there. And because this guy was an enthusiast and he had this elite mindset of who the true enthusiasts were and the proper pronunciation. So Porsche is the proper pronunciation. Now, the other thing that he taught me is he taught me all about the boxer engine. Now, I did know a bit about the boxer engine, that it's a balanced engine. The pistons go out to the side, last longer, better performing, because Subaru is the other manufacturer that makes boxer engines. And so, but he told me all about boxer engines and just how great they were, and how Porsche invented those. And but then he told me another fun fact. We noticed that the key was on the left side of the steering wheel. And I actually asked him about that. I said, well, that's kind of funny. Like, why did they put the key on the left side? To which he told me a story. He said, because Porsche started out as a race car, right? And in the old days, they didn't always start in the car. Like the drivers would actually be outside the car. And when they would say ready, set, go, like the drivers had to run to the vehicles and they had to get into the vehicles. And so Porsche put the key on the left side so that as the driver is getting in, they can be sliding the key in as they're still getting into their seat. They could be turning the engine on as they're grabbing the stick shift, slapping it down into first gear. And then as they sit down, they're hitting the clutch and the gas and they're taking off for a faster start in the race. That's why the key is on the left side. And you still see that on Porsches today. I learned all of this, the pronunciation, the boxer engine, the key on the left side. I learned all of that just because I stayed curious. I didn't know anything about that car, but I asked really good open ended questions. Everyone has hobbies, interests, things that they're proud of, and you're in their home, their private space. These things are around somewhere. Stay curious, ask questions. I had a recent experience where we were in a customer's home. I was riding along with the salesperson, and so I wasn't saying too much. I wasn't leading the call, but I could tell the salesperson was having trouble getting this customer talking. This guy was he was really old and didn't seem like he was too interested in moving or even talking. And there was a bit of a language barrier there as well. But then the salesperson ran out to the truck and left me in there by myself for a little while. Now, I'm not going to step in and take over the sales process. That's not my role when I'm riding along with another salesperson. But what I did was I just started chit-chatting. I just started staying curious. He had a lot of pictures around the house of him and his wife, and he had pictures that appeared to be from the Vietnam War. And he even had like little helicopters hanging from the ceiling and whatnot. And so I gathered enough that I thought he was a pilot. I thought he flew a helicopter. So I asked him about that. And he started to tell me about his time in Vietnam and how he used to fly a helicopter. And that like opened, I didn't even have to ask after that. It's just like the floodgates opened. He told me all about how he had met his wife and they had bought that house, and that house was just like framed out. It was a shell of a house. There was nothing inside. And then he went off to war and his wife stayed back and she lived in the house even though it was a shell. And then when he came back from the war, like that was his project. He did everything inside that house. He built that house, he finished that house, and that's where him and his wife lived for the entire time they were married. And then he told me how his wife had passed, and he talked about his kids and how often they visit. Like all of this because I just asked about him being a helicopter pilot. And so stay curious. You don't have to know about these things, but if you stay curious, people love talking about themselves. People like sharing their stories with someone who's genuinely curious and they feel like they can trust. And when they do that, that's the key. We don't have to be super salespeople. We don't have to know the close that puts it all in formation logically, and none of that is going to close. People are going to buy when they like you, when they trust you, when they feel safe enough to share with you. That's when they're going to buy from you. And then our job is to just help them. It's not to sell them, it's to help them. They have a problem. We're a problem solver. Our job is to help them. So it's not logic, it's safety when they feel safe enough to share with you. There's a great clip on YouTube that I would go check out. It's a Ted Lasso clip and it's called Be Curious. Check that out. Watch that clip. That sums up staying curious the best, in my opinion. So stay curious. Good advice for sales, good advice for Thanksgiving dinner. Put this into practice. So that's today's question of the day. Start following on major streaming services. Make sure you rate and leave a comment. If you have your own question, shoot it over to me on social media or email. Both are going to be listed below in the show description. Let's get your questions answered. Or if you're a Next Star member, schedule a call with me and we can address this one on one. We can get very specific to your own situation. I'm Coach Chris. We'll see you tomorrow.